Welcome to Mark My Words, a show that searches for the fork in the road in life, the place where the turning point in the journey of entrepreneurship and life can be found. Let's meet each other at the crossroads on Mark My Words. This episode is sponsored by GrowX Labs. Let's be real, leading a business is lonely. When the big decisions land on your desk, who do you actually talk to? That's where GrowX Labs comes in. Their executive decision support gives founders and execs direct access to a strategic sounding board. Someone who's been in the trenches and knows how to cut through the noise. Whether it's team tension, high stakes moves, or just needing to talk it out, GrowX helps you move forward with clarity and confidence. Head to growxlabs.com/mark. That's GRWX labs.com/mark and book your discovery call. So as my listeners, regular listeners might know, I always put an emphasis on the process that I put myself through when it comes to picking out guests that I want to talk to on this show. I have loved every single experience, and I really try to bring something that is like really, really unique whenever possible. And today, I am extremely confident that I have a guest who, for me, captures the heart of what I want Mark My Words to be about. And there's all kinds of entrepreneurs out there, all different flavors, and I am so happy and get so happy anytime I meet somebody like Bob Labbe, who also, we had a conversation about name pronunciations. Could be pronounced Labbe, but we're Americans, so Bob Labbe, like you're in the lobby, not spelled that way, but he came up with a really cool and interesting invention, and I can't wait to talk to him about the ultimate drink coaster. It's one that protects surfaces from drink condensation and prevents that condensation from spilling on the user. And I am thrilled to talk to Bob today, a man of wisdom and a man with a really great story that I'm at least familiar with based on the summary, but can't wait to hear more. Bob, welcome to Mark My Words. How you doing today?
I'm doing really good, Martin. I want to thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to our discussion.
I am looking forward to hearing the full story on this ultimate drink coaster because I have a cat who loves condensation. So I go, I go to Dunkin' Donuts just about every morning, and I get myself a mango refresher. I love it. I'm addicted to it, and it gets my day going. I don't drink regular coffee for a number of reasons, but uh, the refresher is something that I've latched onto. My cat loves the condensation, so my cat Jack Jack, who's sitting right under me, is probably going to be all ears and probably very disappointed in what you have to say. But us humans are going to love what you have to say. And yeah, I know we want to talk a little bit about your path, but we can start by just talking about the ultimate drink coaster and weave in and out of other topics.
Sounds good. Yeah. You want me to go ahead and step in here and start telling you about my coaster?
Let's step in, let's do it.
Well, Mark, first of all, the last thing in the world that I thought I would ever do in my life would be to invent a drink coaster. Okay. See, I'm an engineer from Georgia Tech, and I graduated from engineering school in 1968. And I started, developed, and sold three air pollution control companies in my 50 years in business. And so here I am, my whole life designing big systems for power plants and steel mills and cement plants. And here, as I enter my golden years, I come up with a good drink coaster. Now that doesn't fit together very well, but let me tell you how I got there. Okay. Yeah, I was down at my daughter's house in Atlanta, Georgia, back in October of 2023, and we were going out to a nice restaurant for dinner. So we all got dressed to the nines, and we were sitting around having a couple cocktails. And she gave me a leather drink coaster to put my drink on. Okay, so I'm having sips from my drink, and I'm just talking, and I pick up my drink, and lo and behold, unbeknownst to me, the drink coaster was stuck to the bottom of my drink. It fell on my one of my most special silk ties, and the condensate went all over my tie, onto my suit jacket, and onto my slacks, onto her floor, and it just messed up everything. Well, I everything else got cleaned up, but I never could salvage my silk tie. So I said to my daughter, I said, coasters have been a pet peeve all my life, and now that I'm about finished in business, I'm going to invent a coaster. I'm going to engineer a coaster that really works. And that's what I set out to do. So the idea was born in October of 23. And for the next 30 days, I made some hand sketches. And of course, I had a good relationship with my chief engineer at my pollution control company. So Tony took my hand sketches and put them into AutoCAD form and really nice drawings. And then I took those drawings and I made up all the claims. And between November and December that year, we had a host of drawings put together and a bunch of claims. And so the first week in January, I went to the patent attorney and showed him my invention, because what we did, we made the invention by using 3D printing. Okay, so we had 3D printing model. It was just a rough model, but it was it demonstrated everything, including the drawings. So my patent attorney searched the patent and did a thorough search, because by the end of January, we knew there was not an active patent on any coaster in the world. And so then we proceeded to make our claims, and by March 6th of that year, we had a patent pending with the United States Patent and Trade Office. And since that time, we've developed offshore manufacturing, onshore local manufacturing, sales and marketing, website, all the sales and marketing tools. We've been to a number of trade shows, and here we are today. Actually, we started our sales and marketing at the beginning of this year, January 1st of 25, and we've my daughter and son-in-law run the company, and they have a good staff they work with, and we've got a UV very large printer. We can print and emboss this with any sports teams, whatever your affiliation is that you want on your coaster. We can do all that. So that's kind of the overview of our story, and I can get into the details as you request.
So, let me start by asking, why have coasters been a pet peeve in your life?
Well, just because of the very thing that happened on that day in October 23, the doggone thing sticking to the bottom of your drink, whether they're most of the coasters you go out, if you go to a restaurant or bar or something like that, you're going to get a Heineken cardboard coaster or a paper coaster or something like that. And if you're sitting there having a beer with some of your friends, you're just talking at the bar, invariably that coaster is going to stick to the bottom of your beer mug. Okay, and invariably it's going to either fall on the floor or fall on your clothes and mess up your clothes. So that I had that happen to me, probably a half a dozen throughout times throughout my life, and I just got, it was just an annoyance. I never thought much about it. Well, being an old guy now and having this happen to me when I was dressed up to go to a nice restaurant, it really got under my skin, and that was the motivator that started me on the engineering journey.
For some reason, I was expecting you to have very specific, well, in 1990, I was trying to get a promotion and I didn't get it because of a toaster. It's just a
Yeah,
general annoyance.
exactly. That's exactly what it is. A just a pet peeve, and one that was subliminally living in my head that I didn't know existed. But when that day in October came, and it messed up my favorite silk tie, it really got under my skin, and I thought I better do something about it.
Well, I know for me and for a lot of other people I've talked to on this show, there's always that moment or crossroads where you're like, okay, I need to make a change. I need to do something. And it's like kind of like the beginning of a journey where, you're going to like change your life. And I guess the same kind of thing happened to you, but a little bit later in life. And for a lot of people, I think they would just walk away from that incident like, ah, those darn coasters again, and I'm annoyed. And that's where they would leave it. But you didn't do that. You said, you know what? I don't care where I'm at in life. I want to do something about this now. Like, what do you think, other than just it being a pet peeve? Like, what really made you, like, kick this into motion and actually take the action, other than just having and hauling and then going, forget it?
Well, I'm sure you know, engineers are problem solvers. Okay, and I spent my entire life problem solving air pollution type problems, mechanical, electrical, civil, all mannerisms of problems. And so it's inherent in your very living of being an engineer to want to solve a problem. We do that with if a hinge on a door is stuck, that's a problem. We have to solve it. But I think that the problem solving thing got in my head, but knowing it was a pet peeve, but the real stimulus was messing up my favorite silk tie. That's what really got my goat. And so I thought, well, there's got to be a solution to this. And I wrote a book about putting, long distance putting too. And that same problem, I had a problem long distance putting, and I had to find a solution to it. So I wrote a book called Putting by the Numbers. It's a book about long distance putting, and because the only reason I wrote that book is I had to solve a problem, and I really did solve the problem, and it really works. So it's the same thing with the Ultimate Coaster. It really works, and this is the only drink coaster in the entire world that really works. Because you know why? It captures the condensate, it conveys the condensate, and by capillary action, which has these little semicircles in the grid, it conveys the condensate into the collection pan or reservoir. And so it captures, conveys, collects, and contains this condensate, so it doesn't get on your clothes, doesn't get on your furniture. And then when you at the end of the evening, if you can let these just evaporate the condensate out of, or you can throw them in your dishwasher. These are dishwasher safe, made with ABS plastic, and it solves the problem, and so that makes me happy that I solved a problem.
And it is a problem. And I see the problem every morning when I have my refresher. Now, I don't view it as a huge problem only because it makes my cat very happy. But it can get very messy and it can be a very big annoyance. So from from my perspective, I think this is a really smart and, it's a smart idea, and it's about time. Like, why do you think nobody else has ever really tried to do something like this?
Well, I don't know. I looked at the matter of fact, I bought a marketing book on coasters worldwide, and there are virtually more than 100 different types of coasters on the market, from very thin paper to cork to foam to wood to steel and various kinds of copper and brass, all kinds of metals. And what's interesting about them all, some of these coasters, like you get a stainless steel coaster, one coaster might cost you $10. And it has no ability to do the job of collecting your condensate. People would buy a stainless steel coaster because it might have your company's name on it. Okay, well, that's great, but if it doesn't do the job it's intended to do, what good is it? And so you can do that. We've got sports teams, we've got golf courses, we've got all kinds of people that we're embossing the coasters with UV printing on and selling them hundreds or thousands of these at a time. And they're distributing to all their customers and friends and that kind of thing. And now they're giving somebody like this is a great. We're selling a lot of these at Christmas. Matter of fact, we got 10,000 in stock right now, and I think we're going to sell out. And we got another production run going on right now. I think we're going to sell them all out before Christmas. So consequently, it is the product is catching on. Of course, we've been at this for a little over 2 years and a year in sales and marketing. So yeah, we've been to trade shows and all, and the product is catching on. But we're going to continue to advertise and promote this product, and hopefully we can solve the condensate problem of the world.
So talk a little bit about getting like branding, because you're not just saying, well, this is our product and boom, that's it. You're trying to entice all different types of people, not only for the fact that your product is effective, but you're also trying to say, hey, look, if you want XYZ brand on your coaster, we're going to do that. I mean, are you like talking to actual sports leagues? Is it just teams? Is it like, you know, creative brands? Talk a little bit about the approach and just your mindset of on like the demographics you're trying to capture.
Well, there's a whole host of entities that we're trying to reach out to promote this product. And, you know, uh, just as a statistical fact, in the modern world, worldwide, the average household for a developed family, developed world, has 24 coasters in it. And I say to people, yes, they got 24 coasters, and probably 24 of them do not do their job. So there's a need to, we had a party about 3 months ago, and we had a visitor put their drink down on one of our antique furniture pieces, and it put a stain on there which we couldn't get out. So we had to have it refinished, and it cost hundreds of dollars to have that refinished. Okay, so coasters are a very important part because in the developed world, people are getting more and more expensive furniture, and they need to protect it. And this is truly a protected device. So we're reaching out to the retail consumer is where one of our primary customers. Corporations, the Fortune 500 companies, you just give away pens and that sort of stuff with their name on them. Well, Fortune 500 companies would love these for their customer identification of their name and all that. So we're reaching out to the Fortune 500 companies, and we've had some pretty good success with a few of them. But we're in the embryo stages of marketing development. And then you take all the sports teams: baseball, football, basketball, soccer. We've reached out to some of those, the fraternities, the social fraternities, and the professional fraternities. the medical societies, the legal society, the engineering societies. I mean, there's a plethora of people that need coasters and they can help themselves with this because this is really a promotional product that will allow their clients to identify with them. And every time they set their drink down at their desk at their office, they'll see the name if they choose to emboss the coaster with their name on it. And it's a real sales tool for them as well. So there is just a magnificent world of opportunity to sell these coasters to, and we're just in the embryo phases of doing it.
So for me, a small business going to a very large business, that could be viewed as like intimidating to a lot of people. How do you kind of get over that hump and say, you know what, like my product is on this level. You need this product and I have something that you need. Like how do you get over that hump and what would be good advice for just making a pitch anywhere really?
Well, of course, I had three major experiences in my life from starting air pollution control companies from scratch. Okay, and you obviously encumber an enormous number of obstacles from nothing to our second company. We were on the Nasdaq Stock Exchange. We were doing over $300 million worth of business a year. And so we went from zero to sales of 300 million a year. So I'm used to taking something from zero to 100,000 to a million to 10 million to many millions of dollars. And so along the way, you have various obstacles. Now, we fortunately, one of the big obstacles we had was trying to find, we don't want to charge the consumer too much money for this product. You can buy four of these on Amazon Prime for $19.99, including the metal coaster holder, and that includes delivery to your house. Okay, and so they're very cost effective, and they're like I say, the only coaster that really works. So keeping the consumer in mind and knowing that you got to have a good product that's really excellent, that was our objective, to deliver something that was truly useful and that did its job. And so now we've got offshore manufacturing. We have local manufacturing here, USA product. We're proud of our US made product that we deliver all over the North American continent. But indeed, if we have customers in New Zealand and Australia now, that we have our offshore Asian manufacturer doing that for us. So logistically, we're set up to handle a world in a really cost-effective manner, and that's our objective. We want to keep the costs low. We got the manufacturing done. We got a good sales and marketing team. We got a good fulfillment team, and it's all coming together. And we're just going to have to grow it like I've grown my previous businesses.
So I know for me, keeping costs low is pretty easy, especially since I'm basically the only person doing this entire operation. But I feel like with what you're trying to build, although it's, a simple premise, at least from what I can understand on this end, you still yourself need to pull from other resources. How do you keep costs low and allow yourself to grow?
Well, first of all of the people that work for the Ultimate Drink Coaster Company are incentivized to be part of the profit making team. If we make a profit, it's a shared profit. It's not we don't have anybody that's just getting dollars per hour. We've got motivation and incentive for people to grow with the company. And I think that's going to be very helpful to us. And then all of our subcontractors, be those the manufacturers, because we had the molds made, obviously, to make these coasters in both Asia and the United States. we have and those molds have to be replaced after maybe a $50 million shots of usage, and then you have to replace them and replace them. So we'll be replacing molds, and our subcontractors, we have subcontract manufacturing contracts that are both beneficial to us as the provider and both beneficial to our manufacturing subcontractors, because it gives them a substantial amount of continuous work. And so we're trying to think smart and be fair and honest, not only with our customers but with our employees and the people that work with us.
So, speaking of thinking smart, this is not your first entrepreneurial rodeo. So, I feel like you must have learned some lessons along the way. What are some things that you have learned that you feel has like maybe made you better the next time around, and especially this time around? Anything you're doing that you might not have done in the past?
Yeah, I think you make a good point here, Mark. When you get into the business of developing anything, I learned one thing very early on in my entrepreneurial career, is that don't complicate. Keep it simple. Keep it as simple as you possibly can while still solving the problem. You have to solve the problem. But you don't, engineers have a basic inherent desire to want to complicate things. And I'm an engineer, and yes, I can really get complicated sometimes, but I always have to draw myself back and say, now you got to keep this simple. It's just like with my golf swing. I I have to keep my golf swing simple, because if I don't, I can't repeat it. So I keep my golf swing simple because I can repeat it and I get the same results. And that is probably the biggest lesson I learned in my entire career, is don't overcomplicate things, you know. And always go down the road of trying representing to whoever you're talking what you to believe is absolutely the truth and it's factual, so that you don't have to ever have a memory. I don't have to remember anything, because if I tell you something and you ask me the same question 10 months from now, I'll tell you the same answer, because that's the only answer I got. Okay, so I don't, I don't try to blow up anything into something that's really not. And I think if you keep it simple, be straightforward, be factual, and tell people what's really on your mind, be them a customer or your employee. Those are two of the greatest lessons I learned in business my whole life. Now there's hundreds of lessons, but I mean, we could be here for days.
We could. And I'm glad that you're mentioning not only golf swing, which I can relate to because I know I've been trying to take more formal lessons. The company I work for as my day job offers that. And for one of the things that I have learned is how complicated I'm making it, which is a whole other story. But I've also worked a lot with like uh, technological engineering types throughout my life, and I am not a person who, at least I don't think that I have that mindset, because anybody that I've met that's an engineer who really makes things complicated, they're like super smart in a way that I definitely am not. But I can understand like both of those things, just kind of where you're coming from. Long story short, it's real easy now with what I do as a podcaster and just somebody who's trying to grow in other ways. I know for one thing, like the last thing I want to do, I have enough going on in my life. I don't want to make it more complicated than it is. So I try to be super simple about how I do the show, which you can clearly see. It's just we hit record and boom, here we go. We're off. That's the show. So
Yeah,
I'm trying to keep it as easy as I can. So I think there's a lot of wisdom there to just try to keep not only your business, but your life as simple as you can.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in that statement.
Yeah. No, I can totally relate. And I love that you not only brought up golf swing, but engineering, because especially the golf swing, I really gotta stop overthinking that one. But
We we well, Mark, what you need to do, 50% of the game of golf can be putting. And you need to pick up my book. You give me your address. I'll sign a copy and send you my book on putting. I want you to read it.
I appreciate that because that's definitely something I need to work on. And when I was prepping for this show, I was like, boy, I don't really think that that's like the same person. No, it is the same person. How do you like that? But
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
yeah.
Let me ask you. It's almost 2026. By the time this comes out, it will be early 2026. I know personally, being as somebody who's a few years younger, I would not have pursued this type of business um, like 20, 30 years ago. I don't even know if I would have done it 15 years ago. And it's not even this type of business, but any kind of business. And I know that you have been an entrepreneur through your life. I feel like what you're doing now lines up a little bit more. I mean, that's not to say there haven't been inventors. There's been oodles of inventors in the history of mankind. But I just feel like what you're doing and how, this is not. Would you. Do you think that there's any chance you would have gotten to a point earlier in life where you would try something like this, or does the fact that we have all this technology make a difference in you pursuing it now?
Well, I when the hardest thing I ever did in my life was studying, learning, and graduating from Georgia Tech. That is the Marine Corps of engineering colleges. They're tough, and they don't make it easy on you to get through that school. So when I graduated from Georgia Tech, I was exhausted and I was excited about the future. Well, I felt at that particular juncture in my life that, boy, with this great education I got to now put it to use. And so I did. And I was looking at that young age of 22, 23 years old, pursuing things that were very challenging problems and complicated and solving those problems. And so I did throughout my life. I mean, because there's every aspect of engineering is utilized in the air pollution control field, you know. And so we touched on all disciplines of engineering, and it was great. It was I tell people, look, I was 50 years in the air pollution control business, but guess what? I never worked a day in my life. I loved it. It was a love of life was my work. And so I can honestly say, yeah, we had some tough times. You were sweating a few times and things got rough a few times. But in the bottom line of it all, it was the love of life was my work. So when I got to this point in my life in 1996, when I started playing golf 29 years ago, my partner and I, who sold a second business together, we agreed that we'd go play golf together. And so we both went out and took lessons, and we got pretty good at the game with all the 13 clubs other than the putter. Well, John, my partner, John Halligan, he was a pretty good putter, so he didn't have the problem I had. But I had a problem of long distance putting. So he had a problem. I got to find a solution, and that's the reason for my book, Putting by the Numbers. And so another problem that I thought I would never solve in life, it's that problem is not so simple. And it took me it took me until 2021 before I wrote the book, because I have over 250 to 300 notes on what I was doing to make sure that the method was reproducible and linear and accurate and something that anybody could do. But that's another story. That was one problem solved after my career, and then of course this coaster's the last problem. And I knew at my age there was no way I could create a business to do this coaster myself. So I have four sets of son-in-laws and daughters. Okay, and offered each of them the opportunity to participate in the development of this company on the 50-50 basis. And Bart and Stacy Haddocks, who are running my business, or their business actually, I'm a talking head now in life, and I participate anytime we have meetings and questions. But they're running the show, and they got a great sales and marketing department, and they got a good manufacturing they're working with. So it's their business, but I'm there to do these podcasts and have meetings with them, and we talk about problems and how we're going to solve them, that sort of thing. But at this particular juncture, I don't want to be in business anymore. I just and I'm so happy they're doing so well with this business, and they're having fun with it.
Well, I definitely can feel the passion and just in general the sense of I feel like I've never worked a day in my life. Like, that's incredible. That says a lot. Did you know early on in life before college that what you pursued in life, especially as like a problem solver and just being in this field, did you know that that was something that you wanted to do?
Well, no, actually, when I graduated from Georgia Tech, I really didn't have any idea what an engineer was, even at that point in my life. You're hit with a barrage of physics and science and engineering, mechanics, and all these different courses, electrical, mechanical, civil, etc. And you get just barraged with stuff, and you do tons and tons of studying and all this kind of stuff. And then you get to the end of the thing, you get your diploma, and you say, I'm an engineer, so what am I going to do? Well, back in the 60s, though, it was different, because I only had a 2.7 average out of a 4-point system. So I wasn't the brightest bulb in the room, but I was a hard worker, and that's what separates me from many people. You can't outwork me. Okay, you might try. You may be smarter than me, but you won't outwork me. And so what happened back in that day, I had 23 job offers from companies from Boeing, Eastern Airlines, you name it, I had it. And it wasn't because I was a good student. When they met me, they realized what kind of a person I was. Well, I ended up going to work for American Air Filter in Louisville, Kentucky. And the reason I did that was because the air pollution control world was just beginning. Even though manufacturers around the world have been doing air pollution since the late 19th century, uh, the new world of the Clean Air Act of 1970 was about to hit. And I knew that when that law passed, that every steel mill, every cement plant, uh, every manufacturer in this country, whether it's rock products, whatever, was going to have to comply with that. And I was right. So American Air Filter had a 6-month program, in class training, 40 hours a week, that you were in class learning about the practical aspects of air pollution, HVAC, air filtration, you name it. They had a whole host of courses that you took during that 6-month period, and that was the best education I ever got, because it was practical. Georgia Tech's more theoretical. This was very practical. That's what gave me my bones.
Well, you said something in there, although a lot of that was very important. You said something especially important to me, and that was the whole statement about being such a hard worker, you won't outwork me. And I feel like I have a lot of that mentality in my blood, and I feel like to be an entrepreneur, wow, I've met some really, really sharp people doing this show. I feel like there's always a moment in this show where I hear something or see something that I'm like, that's the connection. And I feel like your work ethic, just that mentality, is something that I can really relate to because I myself, with all the challenges that I've had in my life, I've had to I've just felt that need that I really need to like work hard and work extra hard. And I bring that mentality to my business, my life, and I see that mentality in so many other entrepreneurs. And while that's not everything. I think it's a really important trait that you need to have if you want to be successful, if you really want to make your idea a reality. You have to be willing to work and you have to have the passion, and you easily have both.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I really I love when I have those moments in these episodes where just like those aha eureka moments, and that, not that you haven't said enough already, but that really told me a lot. And let's see here, before, I don't want to hold you here forever, but one thing I do want to ask you about a little bit is you mentioned the 3D art and animation and how that has played a role. How are you using that? And I'm guessing you're still using that to uh, enhance the product and create the product, correct?
We are. As a matter of fact, we have two or three products that are on the drawing board now that we will make the prototype using 3D printing. And uh, it's kind of coaster related and drink related, but we don't want to spill the beans too early here about because we have there's a lot of people in the coaster business worldwide. And we know that just as a matter of numbers, there's like $1.4 billion of coasters sold in the United States every year, and the total market in coasters that's going to be by 2030 is 2.2 billion. So it's a big marketplace, and there's a lot of people in the business. And the thing that I think that what we what I've told my daughter and son-in-law that hey, um, don't be acquired by another company. Do your own thing and grow your business and grow your business. And that was one of the mistakes I made in life. I let my company be acquired by a Nasdaq company, and they were more about wanting to build business and not solve problems. And then after being with them for several years, I decided, nope, I'm not going to do this anymore. I completed my employment contract and I started another business. And then I did it my way. And my last company was a business done my way. And I think that's one of the things that we want to do at the total, the Ultimate Drink Coaster Company is to do it our way. And yes, 3D printing is a part of the problem solution to future consumer products that we're in development stages in.
You said another thing there that could not only be important to entrepreneurs or potential entrepreneurs listening, could be important to me too, because there is like, a dream, I guess. Not, I don't know if it's my dream, but maybe just in general, I feel like people dream of that moment where they can maybe sell off their company, put their feet on the sand, and drink margaritas the rest of their life. Uh, I mean, life doesn't really work that way anyway, at least I don't think for most people. And I think even for people who do have enough that they could do that, they get there for a reason. So it all kind of goes back to that need to push yourself and work hard. So I feel like that's a really good statement that and a lesson that I feel like you learned, and I'm glad you shared that because I know personally, just as somebody still working in corporate America, I had a vision of, I was going to climb the ladder and eventually I was going to hit that place where I could put my hands behind my head and lean back and be like, I made it. But it doesn't work that way. You have to work to earn uh, what you want in this world. And selling your company off, I guess, is not always the right dream to have.
Well, I think that's true. This last time that I sold my company, I sold it to one of my key employees, and I told Tom, I said, you know, I don't want to happen to this company what happened to my two previous companies. People come in and tried to grow it and make it something it wasn't, and in the process they destroyed it. I want you being he's a mechanical engineer, a good guy, very capable, had worked with me in my second company and was worked with me 5 years in this last company before I sold it to him. And he's taken the company and he's running it the way I ran it, and he will continue to grow and be very successful. So, yeah, I don't think it's always a good idea. And you look at most, Mark, you look at most people that have been very, very successful in the world. They don't quit working. They don't quit thinking. They are constantly, it's just like my wife says to me, says, are you ever going to quit working? I said, no, I probably won't because, I get up in the morning, I have ideas. I have a notepad. I've had one of these steno like pads, and I have about 150 of them in my storage closet here, um, that I keep notes on. Okay, if I have a telephone call, a conversation with a client or with an employee or whatever, I take notes and I date those notes, and I can go back. I can go back. You won't believe this, but I can go back to 1973 and tell you I had a conversation in a day in May, and you would think that's crazy. I just because I want to be able to recall what I said, what you told me, what I told you, and then we can move on with the conversation. And I think that's important to always know where you've been, so you know where you're going. Okay.
So I want to point out, if you notice I shift my head like this, I think I do understand because I have a long memory and I feel like it annoys people just how far back I can go. So I am not surprised to hear that you can go back that far because I'm gonna be 47 in a month and I can go back to like the early 80s where I would be, 3, 4, 5 years old. Granted, that's a little bit different than, you know, maybe me looking back on, I don't know, the 90s or the 2000s in another 20 or 30 years. Um, I'm not surprised to hear that, and I don't really know where I'm going with that, but I just wanted to let you know that somebody out there gets it. I can relate. I
I hear you.
understand. As soon
Yeah,
as you
yeah.
said you probably wouldn't be able to, like, I think I do know what you mean, and it's both like a good and a bad thing to have that like type of memory.
Well, yeah, I think it's valuable to have a good memory, and if you don't have memory, write things down.
Right. No, I agree with that. So let's talk a little bit about how people can find the ultimate drink coaster, how they can get a hold of you and work with you, and anything else that you might want to add.
Sure, I appreciate that. Yeah. Well, of course, the ultimate drink coaster is the website is ultimatecoasterco.com. com. Okay, and the Ultimate Coaster product is available on Amazon Prime. It's available by going to the Ultimate Coaster Co. website. Um, it's in a lot of the Route 66 stores that are the old Route 66 stores. It's being placed in those. It's a Bigfoot truck item that now that Bigfoot is putting their brand on it, and so yeah. But I think the primary source of getting it is through our website and through Amazon Prime. That's where you can buy it. We're the least expensive, quickest delivery, and free delivery. Okay, and so that's what I would recommend. Those two places, not to complicate things.
All right. Well, Bob Lobby, thank you so much for being on Mark My Words. Like most episodes, I always forget to mention I am Mark Schmidt. I'm the host of Mark My Words. I gotta at least mention my full name once. Bob, thank you so much for being here. I had a blast talking, inventing, and entrepreneurship, and just hearing about your awesome path. And I wish you and the Ultimate Drink Coaster and your team all the best in the future. I think this is an awesome idea, awesome invention, and you're bringing something really cool and unique to the world, not only through the product, but just through your experience. And this was phenomenal. Thank you for being here today.
Mark, I want to thank you for having me, first of all, and I wish you and your family a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I hope to have another conversation with you in 2026 and tell you how we have progressed with our company and our new products.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you and your family. And yeah, absolutely. We can certainly, I'm always thinking about and looking for reunion ideas and episodes. So, you know, we'll see if we can make that happen. But
Well, Mark, I would say that maybe next year I could give you a whole story on my on my putting by the numbers long distance putty book. In the meantime, I'll send you a copy.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I think the one area of my game I could definitely use some help with is my putting. So not that the rest doesn't need work either, but I know my driving is pretty good. But I took a lesson last winter. I'm in Florida, so I took lessons last winter. My company offered and continually offers something with like PGA professionals, and I didn't realize how my driving, how I'm just doing it more like I'm playing baseball than a golfer. So I have a lot to learn, but yeah, we can certainly talk about this and more down the road. But thanks again for being here, and you just listened to Mark My Words. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you soon with another great episode. Bye for now. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to go on a journey with me into entrepreneurship and life on Mark My Words. If you would like to learn more about me and the show, you can find me on LinkedIn at Mark Schmidt or connect with me on Instagram at Nimrod79. Video episodes of Mark My Words, as well as other content, can also be found on the Mark My Words YouTube page. Entrepreneurship can be quite the roller coaster ride. It can be a bit isolating and intimidating, but it doesn't have to be that way. Let's meet here next time at the crossroads on another episode of Mark My Words.